So another Six Nations over and Wales finish off on a win. But is it all sunshine and rainbows? Carry on listening to find out. Hello and welcome to the wrap. And as ever, I am Harley and celebrating Wales winning. That's right, Wales have won a Six Nations game for the first time in 3 years as a regular crew of Dan, Nick, and Hattie. Folks, how are we doing?
I'm doing
Woo!
fantastically well, to be honest. And
Yeah,
yeah, did we all call it? Did everyone? I think we all called it
I
last week,
think we
didn't we?
do. I
That we
think we
win.
all said we win, didn't
I
we?
think everyone was in, but I got to be honest, I didn't see it happening the way that it did.
No.
No.
Well, I made
So
the joke, didn't I, about a 12 try bonanza,
you did,
thinking it
yeah,
would be,
yeah.
and it wasn't far off actually.
No, you know,
But
you're right.
I don't know. I don't know what you're on about. I think it was quite tame compared to one of the other games on that weekend.
yeah,
But more on
indeed,
the game in a
indeed.
bit. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to do the pod in two parts this week. This episode we're just going to focus solely on the Wales senior men's and the under 20s, and we'll put the stuff about URC and Celtic Challenge on a later episode, which very little time will pass for us, but for you guys will be a day or two, depending on when producer Lee wants to put them out. So that's all that. So first of all, we're going to start off, and as I said, Wales beat Italy. I'm personally quite happy with this. It's reasonable scoring in the end. One of the big issues we've had over this campaign has been the attack. So Nick, do you want to talk to us what's gone well with the attack for that one?
Yeah, well, I still think it's perfect. But I do think we made progress. I thought our centre partnership had their best game together. I thought, while Eddie James has been, fairness, consistently good, Jack Hawkins hasn't done anything wrong, but I thought he looked quite good on Saturday. In that he offered a triple threat. He carried well, he passed well, and he tried to make some yards himself. So I thought that was very good. I thought our wings looked dangerous. I thought Adams, who's had a little bit of stick, I think it's fair in saying, over the Six Nations, had a very, very good game. I was very impressed with him. He and also me, who for me, I'll be honest, the jury has been out a little bit, but he had a very, very good game on Saturday, and certainly deserves his place moving forward. And I know we've had long conversations about it, but I thought Louis Rees-Zammit had a decent game as well. And we'll talk later about the contribution of different players over the whole tournament, maybe. I like there was one try. I know you could argue that maybe Wainwright's defense by Italy wasn't the best, but I like the way we worked that try. I thought it was really good. We knew what we were doing. We punched it up really well a couple of times, and then we had Wainwright coming flying through, and and scored the try. So there were lots of more positives in attack. I thought Thomas Williams controlled the game very well. And I thought obviously Dan Edwards had a very good game. He probably, as we agreed last week, if Costello had been fit, probably might not even have featured in the 23. But on his 11th international as a 22-year-old, I thought he came of age. Thought he played really well. And yeah, he kicked everything. He scored a try, after some good build up. And, you have to say the drop goal was audacious. And if it gone wrong, everybody said, why are you doing that? But it didn't. It was a wonderful drop goal. And he left the field to a great reception after 67 minutes. So overall, better. I think it's the first game we've almost doubled our try scoring in one game in that we scored 4 tries. But again, the forwards carried well. The gain like success was good. So it's not perfect. We know that. There's still some issues with retaining the ball off aerial kicks, which I think became second best in that area. But overall, our attack was more threatening. And when you put in the other aspects of a game, such as defence and how well your pack goes, it was a decent performance. And we deserved to win the game. I don't think anybody could say we didn't deserve to win that game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, I thought that what we did effectively was we bullied them for 50 minutes. We carried harder than they did. We dominated the collisions better than they did. A quick look at the stats. I think we carried. Let's have a look here. We carried the ball 101 times for 238 post-contact meters. That's a decent return from us, and probably I haven't looked, but I think that's probably our best return in the tournament, and probably for a long while. And what they've done really, I think, in terms of the attack, is they've just put people in the right places. We put Reece Carey on the back end previously of those tap and go moves that we've been working on. I think you're spot on, Nick, the way they manipulated that, tried to get Wainwright Carey in at sort of, in at those defenders. He just barged his way over, didn't he? From a rugby league perspective, he carried it from the back fence and got in the game. I think on the whole, um, James Botham for me was the most physical man on the field. Both sides, maybe not both sides of the ball. I thought he carried the ball well when he did, but Wainwright was probably our best ball carrier. But Botham, whenever he's whacking into rucks and slamming people in tackles, I thought he was standout. Everything he did just looked physical to me. And yeah, as a result, I thought the game was over really on 50 minutes, wasn't it? Well, we 31-0 up, game done and dusted. They was always going to have a little bit of a momentum swing, I suppose. And the rest, as I say, is history. It's done and dusted. We had a yellow card in that period as well, and it's done and dusted. So I thought our defence as well was much better again. This improved again this week. The stats would back that up. We missed less tackles. I think we had an 80-odd% completion rate.
Yeah, I think
81.
it's yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I think it was
88.
88. Yeah,
So 121
How's this
tackles.
Italy was 81.
16 missed. It's a fairly decent return. And I would have thought
I'm going off a Six Nations website saying 81 and 77 for that one. But yeah.
I've got Rugby Pass up because I
Yeah.
don't trust the Six Nations website.
Yeah. Well, I got
But-
told by Hugh a lot of this Rugby Pass stats are wrong for that game, so I've switched on this one. So,
Well, either way, it was much
Yeah.
better, and this sort of high press that they are bringing in now, I think is starting to click. The one thing that's obvious for me is they're starting much wider in defence. That's evident. It allows them to adjust a little bit better. I've heard some people talking about it being a blitz. It's not a blitz defence. It's a high press. Blitz defence would be get off the line as hard as you can, as fast as you can, keep going until you whack someone. This is very much get up into that sort of collision zone and then press as they move in the ball. If you get, so it's a bit softer thereafter, but they're in those passing lanes a little bit more, which is allowing us to shut those plays down at the back much easier. So yeah, I gotta be honest. I thought it was almost like routine, really. For what it's worth, like when we used to play Italy previously, 31-0, mind. They didn't throw a punch for 50 minutes. When did Archie Griffin have his yellow card?
on 51 minutes, which is
There you
it was
go.
one of those annoying double jeopardy things, which I know Super Rugby have gotten rid of. There seemed
Yeah.
to be an awful lot of it in the Six Nations because you didn't see it for a while. Where if the try was scored, they just let it go
Yeah,
unless it's
So-
a penalty try. So
and I think it sort of ramped up then thereafter, didn't it? I think they scored from the maul, didn't they? At that point, and that come from a penalty whereby they kicked in. So yeah, I thought they were. I don't know whether they were poor Italy or we were good, and I'd like to think that we were much better than them for the first sort of 45, 50 minutes. There obviously was that momentum change then, and they showed some of the things they can do. I still think Menoncello's probably the best centre in Europe, I would say at the minute. There was a couple of things that did confuse me as well. We seemed to try and crash Joe Hawkins up a lot when we had Eddie James just outside. I thought Joe Hawkins did well in those close quarter and those close confrontational battles. He managed to get gain line and didn't lose the ball, but use the bigger guy outside you maybe. I agree. I thought Dan Edwards went well. Maybe it's a sign that it's much easier to play better as a fly half when your pack's going forward and everything's on the front foot. The drop goal just showed how full of confidence he was. And the only other thing, I suppose, if I'm being uber critical is whether Reece Sammett's a fullback. No, I don't think he had a bad game, far from it. But is that his best position when you see what the likes of Louis BLBRA is doing for France? Surely he's our version of BLBRA, isn't he? Um, look how many. Look at some of the touches that Josh Adams had that you were on about. Maybe if that was Louis Rees-Zammit, some of those are crossing the white line rather than. And again, I'm not saying that Josh had a bad game because again, I agree with you. I thought he was very good, solid, abrasive, tough. But I just wonder whether we get the best out of him at 15. The jury's still out on that for me. But on the whole, I was cock a hoop with it. Well done, boys. Great performance.
I think
Yeah.
for me, oh, sorry, Harley. I was just going to say, I think the main difference between this week and especially our first week is that it was the team performance. There was nobody who, obviously, Aaron Wainwright was incredible and he, well deserved man of the match, but there was nobody setting records for most tackles or most turnovers or anything like that. It was everybody putting in the same amount of effort to play together. Whereas I think in other weeks we've had standout performances by individuals and the workload hasn't been even. Whereas this time round, it was split between attack and defense. It was well balanced. Everybody was playing a part. Everybody was playing their role. And it wasn't a savior complex, which I think has happened in some of the other weeks where, especially like Thomas Williams has gotten really frustrated and you can see that he's gotten frustrated and he's overplayed. There wasn't that this week. And I think that made a huge difference. It was a lot more cohesive and a lot smoother.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that it was when they were picking man of the match, I thought it could be any of them really. I thought Reece Carey was excellent again. That turnover that he had in midfield, where he's chased the lad back, dragged him down from behind, straight back on his feet, compete. Now it was Dewi Lake was proper captain's performance again. I know he came off on 37 minutes, but Franny at tight head, anchoring that scrum down. You got to wrap that guy up in cotton wool now until we play, the autumn internationals or whatever it is. Pay him whatever he needs to keep him. How old is he? Anyone know how old he is?
He's 33, 34, I think.
Oh, he's got another 10 years left in him. Come on. Well, all jokes aside, we have got another couple of years left in him if he's looked after properly. So, yeah, I thought he's anchored scrum down. Honourable shout out for the second rows again, Carter and Jenkins. That's clearly the way forward. It was just good. But I don't know what else to say other than it was pleasing to watch. I didn't be and it was nice to see that we've had that. We finished with a crescendo, haven't we? After the way we started, the way we finished is night and day.
Right, so I'm going to be the party pooper somewhat with some of these, but one thing I agree. I think Dan Edwards played his best well, and it was interesting that it's probably the most like how he plays at the Ospreys, where he tends to he's not very often that first receiver. He's more that second receiver, and with his try that it's the same try he's scored quite a few times at the Ospreys. It's almost he's standing in the 15 channel. I only mention that as a way to sort of have jockeys two playmakers thing, and maybe look at someone other than Zammit at fullback. Just saying with his kicking game, and he's a very good goal kicker. I mean, one of the few stats Wales topped the Six Nations was goal kicking percentage. So that's one thing I think we've got to be. Although I don't know how much that is, just a few chances. But
Yeah, I was going to say when you only have like 5 opportunities and you get all five, it's going to be 100% versus like Ramos, who's had to kick about 27,000 times at goal.
yeah, but he still ended up with almost 100%. So that's good. Yeah. So some of the stats we weren't very good offloads, but I mean we're still developing our attack. I don't expect us to be throwing offloads wildly, and there's an adage that I can't remember who the coach was, but I think it might be on Hughes podcast. And he basically says you're either an offloading team or you're not, and you can't half do an offload. You've got to be committing to it, and your players have got to be expecting the offloads and not. Line breaks again, we were quite low. We were low again. Weirdly, we had significantly more defenders beaten against Italy, but half the line breaks. And I still don't know if that's just because of Zammit and Adams both having like these amazing runs across the width to try and find a hole to go through,
I just think
But
it's a system thing, isn't it? It's keep ball, multi-phase. You know, Wales have scored 4 tries, mind. Or 5. How many tries we scored on the weekend? 4, 5?
Four,
4
four on
tries.
the weekend.
well,
You know, it's a multi-phase thing, isn't it? For Wales, it's not necessarily, the no rugby, keep the ball alive, offloading through contact and this, that, and the other. It's quite clearly they want to play edge to edge, don't they? 5 metre to 5 metre and try and stretch defences and effectively just overload them. On the way back at some point. Anyone know how many 22 entries we had? That's the
I
that's
don't,
the
but
main one,
we were
really, isn't
quite
it?
efficient, weren't we? I think when we did
I
get
know
in
at
there.
one point, by the time we scored the 3 tries, we were on 7, I think, and then by the end of the first half, it was 4.2. I dropped a little bit after that, but not a huge amount. Give me. Should go
Well,
check that now.
for
But
22 entries,
yeah,
because if we've scored 4 tries, I think anything sort of 6 and under in terms of 22 entries then is extremely efficient for us. If we get 8, 9, 10, 22 entries and only scoring 4 tries, then
yeah. So eight entries. So we finished off on 3.5. Italy got 1.7 with 10 entries, but they did have 3 tries rightfully disallowed, which I think two of those were fantastic bits of defence from Ellis Me and James Botham.
Now the me one, I would agree with. I thought that was a brilliant tackle. I was a bit more on the fence with the Botham one. I couldn't on the replay. I couldn't see clearly anyway where the separation was in the ball. I thought he had enough downward pressure myself.
Wow.
I mean, ultimately it didn't matter because they scored a couple of minutes later anyway. So it was
I
all
mean,
a bit of a moot point.
so
But
a bit more. Maybe we'll start talking about the tournament as a whole now. So going on to the other side of it. So more your domain, Dan, but the defence. So obviously we've already talked about we kept Italy out completely for 51
yeah,
minutes. We got yet another yellow card, but during that whole 10 minutes we didn't let them score again.
yeah,
So that's encouraging, especially when you consider what happened with the yellow cards against France and England,
yeah,
where we sort of leaked tries.
yeah.
How do you think of it?
Sorry, say that again.
So what do you make of that, of the defense overall as a tournament and as a progression, and where do you think it needs to go to get that next step up?
Well, like I said briefly during my little synopsis there, I think it's improved. Number one, because they're defending wider. Number two, then that's allowing them to get off the line and into those passing channels a little bit more. They've clearly worked on that. They're trying to get two in the tackle as much as possible. And you watch the work rate of James Botham is a really good one to watch because it's called a number of things, but like you may have like a chop and topple in. So someone takes inside man tries to chop, second man tries to topple them, but you watch both of them. He goes really hard and makes it a wrestle. So he's actively trying to drive that top half back. Makes such a difference. Time in the tackle gives you time to fold, time to get set, time to scan the opposition opposite you, and allows you to get off the line quicker with more speed and more accuracy. So his work rate off the ball, I think, was absolutely phenomenal. So I think it's been week on week. It's been much better. Maybe England and France were two similar performances where we were narrow all the time. Um, and there was maybe a little bit of a physicality issue against France as well. But I think in the next 3 fixtures, we've seen clear progression week on week in terms of the way that Tandy wants to set his defence up. And I expect that to continue to grow into the autumn nations now. If they're going to have training camps and so on and so forth. Plus, I'm assuming it'll be primarily the same group coming back into camp next time. And I think they'll start to ramp up that physicality. The only sort of rider or asterisk, I suppose, that I'd put on that is obviously Murchie's coming in. Now, whether he wants to alter things or not, will be interesting to see, because if he does want to alter things, then it's a little bit back to square one, I suppose, in that it'll take a little bit of time to bed itself in. But I would have thought, knowing Steve Tandy, maybe the way that he's working at the minute, he's gone for someone who takes, sort of looks after the same looks after defence with the same principle as he does. Murchie would have been at Glasgow when Tandy was at Scotland, so there would have been some sort of crossover there as well. So I would just expect it to improve and become more and more efficient again. Um, on the weekend, I think we lacked a little bit on the floor in defence in terms of turnovers. I don't know what our stats were on that. On the deck turnovers, maybe we need a little bit more of a threat in there. But don't forget, we've got Jack Morgan coming back. I think he's back in full training now. And, and we've also been without Faletau this 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 series as well, this Six Nations series. So, again, I would add those two coming into your team, whether they were starters or not. Well, Jack would be, but Faletau now, whether he'd be a starter or not, with Wayno in there, would add more physicality again. So I can just see it moving on from you, Harley. To be honest, to becoming more and more efficient and being harder to break down. Discipline was better as well. Because we've ramped our physicality up, we're not conceding as many penalties, we're not on the back foot. And that's, let's not forget, most of these boys played in those first couple of games. So that's testament to those. I think Ben Carter does a lot of good work in defence as well, where he's wrestling people up. He again gets time in the tackle, wins collisions, hold bodies off the floor, give your defence time to reset. The difference between a 3-second ruck and a 6-second ruck is night and day at international rugby. If you can keep it at 5 or 6 seconds, you're on top. But I don't know whether anyone else saw this, but do you see the interview with Sean Edwards after the French game, where he's now saying, look, attack is so well organised, so fluid. The laws are set up to make it even harder to steal a ball on the floor. It's set up really to favour the attacking team. It can't escort in, so on and so forth. I'm sure we've talked about it before, and I think that does make a difference. Nowadays, to keep Italy down to 3 tries, I think was a good showing.
Yeah, I just want to add to that is that just a fast stat is that I think we gave a few of these penalties away late in the game. I think we gave 10 away on Saturday.
Okay.
We gave 16 away against England.
Yeah.
So that's night and day, isn't it? I'm
Yeah.
sure the coaches would say that some of those were unnecessary as well. However, we're getting harder to beat, which we've said all along has to be our starting point. The attack certainly still needs further work, and that's almost like the next step. But we are a better team than we were at the beginning of February.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's it. The penalty count there is important. Do you say we were under 10?
7 we conceded with that one yellow card, but that's one of those yellow card offences that.
But again, I would have thought how many of those. Again, I don't know whether we got them on here, but how many of those penalties were, Wales? We are Wales penalties. So Archie Griffin, for example, got sin binned at
51 minutes.
51 minutes. So, and there was a penalty lead into that, so around 50 minutes. Conceded one on 59. That's 2. 63.
There's a scrum penalty as well as somewhere.
And 75. So four of them were on 50 minutes and after, when the game was done. And there is a change in mindset as well then, isn't there? When you're that far, number one, when you're that far ahead, and then when they score a couple of tries, your discipline may go a little bit because it's squeaky bum time, and you're thinking, we don't want to let it go, and you try that a little bit harder. So, to go from, what was it, 16 penalties against
England.
But how many of those were in the first 20 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. We had 3 yellow cards, didn't we?
And 2 or 3 yellow cards. Ridiculous scenario to find yourself in. So look at the difference there at point A to where we were on the weekend. 7 penalties in the whole game, and at least 4 of them, when we were 31-5 up.
I think it would be important, though, as we look towards the next campaign, is that we don't go back to point A. And we continue building, so we start on point B and move forward to point C. Because I think something that we've done over the last however many years we've been pretty shit is that throughout a campaign we start at point A and we're like, our discipline is terrible. We keep conceding tries, blah blah blah. By the end, we've recovered slightly, and it's like, things are looking well, things are positive. And then we go into the next campaign and we start all the way back in square one again. So I think it's important that we don't take our foot off the brake and we still accept that, yes, this was a really, really good start, and yes, this was positive, but we've still got so far to go.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think
and look, I think another team, you know, a Wales team from 7 years ago would have put 60 on Italy on the weekend, wouldn't they? Once they were 30 odd nil up, you know, or however many years ago it was when we were in our pomp.
I
Uh,
I don't know. We were a bit.
Well,
Even then, I think we're
We
still bad
didn't
at. But
score that many tries. We were
well,
more.
we were able to do it when we were required to out in Rome now once. Where we
Mm.
did we get a 70? Did we or something
yeah,
along
but I
those
think
lines?
then there was a target, wasn't it? It's not
Mm.
not necessarily a.
But my point
And there was
is
a
that
total online.
yeah, of course there was, but I suppose that's my point. When we want to get back to that position, don't we? Where we're competing for titles, and if you've got that mentality, that killer instinct, that mindset to go and finish them off. And don't get me wrong, mind this, but that was our best Wales team playing a mediocre Italy team back then as well, mind. Whereas this is arguably, people will say, is the worst Welsh team that we've had playing against Italy's best.
Mhm.
So, there's the trade off for you. But I think on the whole, um, having watched our growth through the Six Nations, I'm pleased. I think we're heading in the right direction. The trajectory is definitely up. But I agree with Hattie. We need to pick up where we left off now when we get into the nations.
Yeah, the summer,
Yeah,
What have we got in
We've
the
got a
the
summer?
game
jet lag
against
tour.
we got a game against Barbarians, and then at Twickenham, I don't know, and Wales women are playing Barbarians as well.
yeah. So that'll
Then
be
we
a
play
double.
that. Then we play Fiji and Cardiff,
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait to see the boosted away support for that game because
and
let's
then
say they
we
haven't got an excuse.
fly to Argentina, and then from there we fly to South Africa.
Well, I don't know what you guys think, but if we got Barbarians and a week later we got Fiji.
No, we play Barbarians first, and then a
Yeah, that's
week
what.
later we play Fiji. If you like, the first game of the
Yeah, but
of the
they're just a week apart.
week apart.
Yeah, it's going to be
Uh,
a. It's, yeah, I
for
think it's
me then
basically a
I'd be
warm up game, basically.
yeah
Yeah.
that's exactly how I'd be treating it. I'd be playing. I'd be going as fully low. Whatever team we think is going to be playing against Fiji the following week, I'd go with that.
Yeah.
It's on the same weekend as the PWR final.
Which
So
game is?
the Barbarians game, which means the
Okay.
Wales women won't have like any of their starters.
And I don't know if it's
We'll have
outside
all
the
the
window.
Bristol
I don't know
ones.
where we'll stand either with players who play in England.
It should be. I
I
assume that
think the
England will be
Prem will
over
be
by then because the
done.
PWR finishes really late.
Yeah, I know it's outside the English, but whether they'll be allowed to play, I don't know where we're up to. That I'm good.
No,
You
I
should be
think
able to.
I think it technically counts as outside of the domestic window by then, but I can't. I'd have to double check.
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll have
because
to
I
see.
there's no reason why we can't go and beat the Barbarians fairly handsomely,
Yeah.
especially if we go with a similar team to what we've had, plus maybe Jack Morgan coming back, and Faletau if he's fit, retired, who knows what
Yeah,
he's
you got
playing
players
like.
like Max Llewellyn as well, who I'll be honest, I think he's going to have a hard time getting in unless they decide to move
Yeah,
Eddie James and make use of the fact that he used to play 10 years of development and use him
no,
a bit more of his playmaking, particularly if we were using Joe Hawkins in the way we are, which is a bit of distribution and a bit of crash ball.
no,
But
you
I mean,
know,
I don't see why we change it now. Just
no,
keep it going.
as much as possible, get this team in to play that, and then we can go and go and turn Fiji over, and
I
then
do
we
have one more positive I'd like to
go on, throw it
pop
in
on
there.
before we go through all this. So obviously all the doom and gloom about tickets not getting sold for France and Scotland games. And then there were 69, well, close enough, near enough to 70,000 people in Principality on the weekend. And that just shows what it's, how important just having a team that gives you something to support.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Has been in those positive games against Scotland and Ireland meant that people were buying tickets and wanted to turn up. And when they're buying tickets, they're drinking at the bars. Yes, you can moan all you like about the people drinking at the bars, but at the end of the day, that puts more money in the WU's coffers. So, that's
Yeah,
great. I don't know how they're going to all
People will
fit into the city
complain
stadium.
about the WRU's coffers and money going into it, though, Harley. So
Good
Let's not go in
turnout.
there. I'm not
It
even
was
going
a
to get
good
started
turnout.
on Dave Redding's appearance on Scrum 5 this week.
yeah, let's skim over that bit.
it was good to see it pretty much at capacity, and like you said, it just goes to show now that there's a team worth following, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, you give the Welsh public a performance and let's be honest, we should have beaten Scotland. You know, let's kick off gate and all of that nonsense. But you know, you give us a team that's in games as we have been in the last three. You know, obviously winning the last one, and people will turn up because it's not a foregone conclusion now that we're gonna roll over and have our bellies tickled every week. So, you know, we just need to keep that level of performance up. We need a few more people with the same mindset as Beefy Botham in there, I think, because for me, he's kind of epitomised the sort of mindset you need, let alone forget the rugby playing ability, the mindset that you need to take that next step up to international rugby. You know, there's a couple of people that we've looked at. You know, take Adam Beard as a prime example. I know he's had a little bit of a slating, but Adam Beard, 6'18" or whatever it is, you know, 20 stone, and he's nowhere near as physical as Jim Botham is, who's what 5 to 10 kilos lighter, a few inches shorter, throwing himself around. He wouldn't be out, you know, he wouldn't be amiss in the, you know, if he went, he's a South African import, I'd believe you, because he throws himself around into collisions. Jack Morgan's exactly the same when he comes back into the squad. You know, Alex Mann's what? I think I stuck in the group the other day. I saw it come up on the BBC thing that he's like 15 stone something for an international six. He's so light, but he's just got complete disregard for his own health and safety, and will throw himself in the way of things. Now, it's a mindset thing, isn't it, rather than a physical thing? Because these are not the biggest men. Don't get me wrong. I think, you know, Alex Mann could stick 5 kilos on, and he'd end up being like Wainwright then. But I think, you know, Wainwright's taken a while to get to the level of out and out physicality that he is now. And there's no reason why Mann can't get there with proper management and a few special chickens.
I think we've got a very decent pack. It's sort of, and you know, obviously, I very much think Jack Morgan's a very, very good player, but in some ways, the balance the back row has been excellent, hasn't it? The both of them and Man have sort of suited each other. It'll be very interesting to see, because Jack is an outstanding player, how well that will play out. Because I would, as you know, I would fully expect him, if maybe to come back as captain, but certainly to be in the team if he's playing reasonably well after his injuries. So yeah, but overall, I think we've got a really good pack. I think Carter and Jenkins been excellent. Throw in Teddy Williams as well to come off the bench, maybe. Front rows done well. Archie Griffin just needs to play more, doesn't he? But he did all right on Saturday. So it's really how we can further develop our attack. I think the defence will come, but I think there's further work needed on our attack.
Yeah, I think the defence thing is, for me, like, defence is like 85 or 90% attitude, isn't it? You know, the rest of it is structure and policy. You know, anyone can learn the structure and the policy. You know, the four of us could sit in a team meeting here and go, all right, okay, they want us to defend wide, you know, full width of the field, set outside shoulders, outside feet forward, and get off the line. Great. But you've got to have a mentality to go, right, well, now I've adhered to policy, I'm going to go and whack someone, you know, and that's where the attitude comes in, and that's where your both thumbs are like gold dust, you know. And that's why I think Jack Morgan will come straight back in, because his mindset's the same. Okay, I understand the policy, I understand the structure, and now the guy opposite me is going to have it. How you balance that up then, I don't know. Maybe for me now, both of them's got a jersey. I don't see how you can take a jersey off him at the moment if he's fit, because he's absolutely delivered for me from a physicality perspective. I think he was fantastic in his last few outings.
It's a nice position to be in, though, isn't it? And what I've liked as well is that when you know, these now post Six Nations has been team of the week or team of the tournament, we had maybe Jack Morgan last year, if at a stretch. Now we've got 3 or 4 players named who say, "Oh, we'll have Dewi Lake at hooker, or we'll have Alex Mann at 6."
It's been
That's a massive step forward.
even if
Reece
our players
Carre try of the tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
easily. But it's nice, yeah, because even if they're not getting in, they're in the conversation. Not, I mean, I think it does tell about whether our attack and the fact that most of our tries have come through the forwards, that there weren't too many backs involved.
Mhm.
But Reece carries, it's it's usually either him or um, oh, my brain's completely gone. The Italian prop, the Italian who said
Bischetti for
Fischetti, yeah,
Ferrari.
Ferraris tend to be and pretty much looking to say, people are looking at Dewi Lake or Danshi and Alex Mann's getting Aaron Wainwright's getting a lot of mentions. Dav Jenkins and Ben Carter are always getting the honourable mentions in the second row as well, just through their work rate. And I feel like it's quite good that we're actually building from a pack because I feel like at Test rugby level, having a decent pack means you're always going to be in a game. It doesn't matter how pretty your attacking structure is. If your pack gets beaten up, I think Scotland had issues for years until they found some forwards who could do the grind. Italy's biggest advance in becoming a lot more respectable has come from having some absolutely elite international class forwards. My big worry for me is the bench.
Mm.
And I feel like although there are some players you say, all right, Nicky Smith coming on for Reece Carre, both very good top quality players, but your game plan changes then because instead of having a ball carrying busting prop, you've got someone who's a lot more it's more of his defensive work over the ball. He's more of an attacking scrummager, which, like in the Italy game, if the ref doesn't like it, that's it. Archie Griffin and Thomas Francis, again, not similar players. In fairness, I'd say Ryan Elias and Dewi Lake are quite similar in terms of how they play. I'd say Dewi Lake's a bit more effective. Ollie Cracknell, I can't fault whenever he's put on a Wales jersey. I think he's been brilliant. Probably didn't have a chance to do anything really in the Italy game. Second row again, we talk about Beard did nothing wrong when he's come off the bench these last two games, but I wouldn't say he's necessarily added anything. But I mean, Nick, you've said this yourself. Beard isn't really an impact player. He's a sort of player who, if you bring on at the end of the game when you're winning, like we were, he's going to help slow things down and it's going to help with the defensive set. Which fair enough. Kieran Hardy, very different nine to Thomas, which is what you want. But then he's very rarely given the chance to actually do anything. Like you can't do much in I think in total he had about 20 minutes. He had less than 20 minutes of rugby across 5 games, and
That for me, that 9 is more of a levels thing. The other 9s that we've got in the squad are nowhere near.
Yeah.
They 6 or 7 out of 10 players, whereas Thomas got the ability to be 9, 9.5. Can be a game breaker. The other boys are not at that level for me, and that's why. Is in the interesting thing then in terms of the makeup of the bench from a forwards perspective. You're right in what you say with the loose heads. Reece Carre's scrummaging's come on. I think it helps being absolutely massive, but he is also a ball carrying threat, whereas Nicky Smith isn't. So therefore, why would you carry Beard on the bench, knowing that you need to compensate for potentially losing that little bit of ball carrying threat, where maybe like a Freddie Thomas would have added something a little bit different, for example. Or you're on about Teddy Williams coming back into it again. He's plenty abrasive enough to maybe having someone like Teddy Williams come on and Nicky Smith come on makes up for the lack of carrying you get there after Carey leaves the field. So maybe that needs looking at. But I think it probably does expose our depth problem, doesn't it? But we've always been like this, haven't we? In certain positions, flying by the seat of our pants a little bit. How old's Archie Griffin?
22, 23, 24, yeah.
In tight head terms,
He's an infant.
He's a wee baby.
He's still got a dummy in.
You got to give him time. And I think having Franny in the squad is probably doing him a world of good because he's learning all the time. And I think Bath lose Thomas to Toy this year, don't they?
They do.
So unless they're going to bring someone else in of that caliber, then Archie's sort of bumping his way up
I
the
don't know.
pecking order
There's
somewhat.
England under 20s tight end who's been getting game time ahead of him, and then I think there's an even younger
There's Will
Bath prop.
Stewart as well, isn't it? Be back.
You got Will Stewart who's going to be your number one, but I've forgotten the name. Is it Seller? I think so. Yeah, Seller.
Salah, yeah.
Thing Seller. He's been
He's
getting
very highly rated.
yeah. They've been pushing him ahead of Archie Griffin. You know, even things like Premier Cup, which would be perfect time for Archie to get some minutes. You know, he's been sort of pushed out of that squad. I mean, I genuinely think the best thing for Archie. I mean, if you're Wales, you're telling one of the regions now. It's basically say,
Signing.
you got to get him because
I
we
mean,
need him playing.
Well, the
if he lives
Dragons
in
are
Bath,
perfect.
does he even have to move?
No.
I mean, he could get. I mean, if he's still in Cardiff, he could get a lift with Josh McNally every day for training.
You've got to
Because
go
he's still
through
lives in
Newport
Bath.
first, though, haven't you? So it'd be easy going to Newport.
Yeah.
That's right in it,
I,
Dan.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I was
But you
just
have got
thinking,
Chrissy Coleman.
Hang on now.
excuse me, that's 100% Welsh international winning Chrissy Coleman, I think. No, he played South Africa, didn't he?
Yes,
Never
he
mind.
did.
He was unbeaten on the Japan tour. Yeah, so I think that's enough. I mean, before we go in down a rabbit hole of squads, just want to just take a breath here and say, if you are enjoying listening to our ramblings and the fact that Wales won, why don't you give this video or podcast a like, a review, share, subscribe, comment, share a link with your friends if you feel so inclined. And it's not just about the Welsh rugby here. Over here on WRRAP, we've got all the individual regional pods. Cardiff's back up. We've just had a special on our 150th anniversary book, which is really interesting with father of the pod, Gwyn Prescott. Cardiff Central members, Steve Coombs and Dan, Cardiff Rugby Life Dan. Dragon's Lair will be up and running, the Ospreys Eries here and thereabouts, and Saucepans and Sidesteps, I believe, will also be going because I'm sure they'll have lots of wonderful things to say about all their Scarlets involvement. We also have the Welsh Language Pod that Nick hosts. Well, this is on, and then there's the SLC podcast if you want to know under the rugby. We also have our sister channel where Yap City is officially back up and running with Hattie and Julia. Mall Street Book Journals just come back as the MLR season kicks off. We also have the Interpro show, the RC Rewind, which is now rebranded back to its original. Now the Six Nations is over, and a bit of an animal. So if you like any of those, give it a like, give it a subscribe, share, and remember if you can go back to last week's episode and watch it again because we want to get that up to 1 million views because we all want a trip to Edinburgh on the Boss. And with that, we move down to the age grades. And Nick, I'd like you to give us a kick us off. So a very disappointing end to Wales Under-20s campaign.
Yeah, I obviously the conditions were awful in Newport on Sunday lunchtime. It's a funny kick-off time as well, wasn't it? But it was the same for both sides. It was like almost like the opposite of Saturday, what we said. They seemed to want it more than we did. They won the collisions, they won the physicality. And I know and we've had a conversation in our WhatsApp group. I do understand at this level it's about development of players and so on, and looking at the bigger picture. But I was quite disappointed. I couldn't watch it live because I was going out on Mother's Day. But I watched, looking forward, got back to it, didn't know the score, and by the last 10 minutes, I was really just flicking through because I could see what was happening. It was a bit of a mad finish, but. Yeah, I was quite disappointed. And what concerns me is that's the second tournament. And I know players change at this level, this age group, but we've had two tournaments now where we've sort of petered out. We did the same the Junior Rugby World Cup in Italy, and we've done that again now in the Six Nations. And I think eventually you have to ask about the background to this because I think there is some talent in the squad. And they're not all going to make it. I understand that. And injuries kicked in as they did on Sunday. But have we got the right people? Have we got the right head coach? I think there's a little bit of pressure, for me anyway, on that setup. I'm going to be looking very carefully if there's any progress when we come to the Junior World Cup in Georgia this summer, because as I say, it's almost like the complete opposite of what we said about the senior team, and it's also worth remembering this isn't just about the Welsh system. I think almost a third of those boys involved on Saturday play their rugby in the English system. For your Baths, for your Bristols, for your Exeters. So yeah, I thought it was quite disappointing. And Italy thoroughly deserved to win. I don't think anybody can have any complaints about that. I think it was 4 tries to 1. Yeah, so yeah, overall, I was quite disappointed by the end. After starting so encouragingly, against your normal physical English team in Northampton, decent performance then against France, beat Scotland, but the last 2 games, and particularly on Sunday, I was disappointed with.
Well, I'll I'll agree with you to a point, Nick, but I'll stick up for the coaching fraternity here a little bit, I suppose, in that, yeah, I agree, and I'm assuming everyone involved in the 20s will say that they weren't happy with their performance. On the weekend, it was a disappointing result. However, it does when you're on about the coaching setup and the coaching system for the 20s. What's the aim of the 20 system? I would argue the aim is to develop and nurture and improve the talent and look at performance thereafter rather than judging things purely on a results basis. For example, if we come third or fourth in every Six Nations, but we are creating 4 or 5 genuine internationals long term out of this squad, and we look through this squad now that have played and go, oh, in 5 years' time and go, Tom Howe, Dion Gwyn, Tom Bowen, Steph Emmanuel, Carwyn Leggett-Jones, then for me, Richard Whiffin's done his job. Irrespective of the fact we have mediocre Six Nation performances, week in, week out, year on year, we're okay, we're average, but that development and that performance element is there. Then I think they've done their job. That's my opinion on the matter. Right? I think it's more development and performance based rather than results driven at this age group. And it's interesting you should mention where they're all playing. And at the moment, yeah, a lot of them are playing in England and so on and so forth. But the 18s played yesterday. I want to say yesterday at Estremanach.
Friday, I think that was it.
Friday was it?
Yeah, I think it's
It was,
Friday.
it was sunny, I think.
It was.
But
Yeah, that's how we can tell what day it was. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure out their matchday squad there was only literally a handful of players that were in colleges in England. 3 of them. There you go, Harley saying
All
3.
3 Gloucester. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that was a release or getting out of schools thing.
Maybe they're at I'm assuming they're at Hartbury, for example, but everyone else is playing in Wales. So maybe the tide is taking a bit of time, but maybe it's starting to turn a little bit. And what I will say no Carwyn Leggett-Jones as well. I know I know some of us on the pod have been sat on the fence about him a little bit, but I think he has got something a little bit different to people at that age group. So they probably missed him. I noticed Evan Minto wasn't in the squad, so I don't know whether he picked up a bump or just been dropped.
Or he's because I think he go off early in the Island game,
He may have, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
believe. But also Dragons may be holding on to him for what we'll talk about in the next episode.
yeah, for the South Africa tour. So yeah, there are all these little bits and pieces going into it as well, and Italy have been good over the last few years at 20s level as well.
yeah,
They're continuing to improve, and what was the score? 20 points to 13, was it? Whilst it's a disappointing loss, we haven't had a bollocking, I don't suppose. Albeit it was 4 tries to 1, but yeah, I'm not too. I am disappointed with the result, but I'm not as disappointed as you are. I think with the coaching system and the overall way that they've performed in this tournament.
I think my
Uh,
point is more. Sorry, guys, before you to come in, apologies jumping back in. Is that I need to see some progress now in the Junior World Cup because I can have quite a lot of time to get. I would think in the lead up to the end of June, July in Georgia. So yes, let's see how they go there before, before maybe I make those comments. But I do need to see some further progress because I think there is some talent there, you see.
I agree. I agree.
Mm.
And I also think as well, when you look at the coaching setup, I think Josh Turnbull's been involved in it. And I forget who else, but it's clearly being used as a coach development tool as well.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that. It's working from both ends. So maybe they have a necessary. Maybe you are right in that. Maybe it's not the head coach that's the problem, because I know Richard Whiffin's an experienced guy. It's maybe the staff around him that could do with some more experience. But if we're using it as a coach development tool as well, then we're always going to have that sort of problem whereby people are learning their trade at sort of age grade 20s international level as well. But then are we to be surprised by that when we've had Dan Lydiate and Reece Patchell cutting their teeth coaching at senior international rugby level?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
Don't forget, Gethin Jenkins walked so those two could run in terms of baptism of fire senior coaching. With his first coaching gig, proper coaching gig being the Wales job, defence job. I do just want to counter that, Dan, because obviously you talk about saying, it's not necessarily the results, but it's the performance. But do we think the under-20s improved even if on an individual basis, do you think players got better? Or do you think the standout players who were standout because they've already taken either SRC or club level by storm were just carrying on with that? Because, my argument would be that, the first two games, the issue was our bench didn't really have an impact and we sort of tailed off. And I think that sort of kept on through. I know you've only got the personnel you've got, but you just felt Italy, because I don't think the Italy under-20s didn't do particularly well this year.
No.
It was
That
the
was a
first
game for
win,
winning.
wasn't it?
But yeah, so I just that's the one caveat I would say, and it's where I do see both sides of your points. I mean, I'm not ready to tear up the whole thing yet because, as with always these questions, is who wants to do it and who actually wants to do age grade rugby, because I do feel like almost like with women's coaching, you don't just want someone who sees it as a stepping stone. You want someone who genuinely cares about player development and stuff. And Richard Whiffin is one of those guys.
And
So
that's sorry, Hattie, that's kind of the big thing for me, in that it's not what Carwyn Leggett Jones does now. It's the foundations that Richard Whiffin and his team and everyone else at age grade level put into him now to ensure that he can perform as a senior rugby player for the Scarlets and then ultimately for Wales thereafter. And so you almost need, I don't know, think of the best coaches that Wales have had or the world have seen in recent years. You're talking like your Gatlins, your Eddie Joneses, your Steve Hansons, maybe. Obviously, from the outside looking in, they are not development coaches. They are out and out performance result based coaches. They are not going to develop you an under-20s team for senior rugby, because you've almost got to look further than your own ambition as a coach, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because you've almost got to go, well, look, I know I'm going to lose some games here because I'm going to try some things and maybe play some people that there may be some people getting capped now at 20s level that they're unsure whether they're going to be able to cut it or not.
Yeah.
There's going to be a load of players that don't make it.
Yeah.
So you've got to be willing to accept those losses. And I think personally, I think that France and England particularly are outliers. They always do well at this level purely based on the player pool that they've got, and generally, genetically, they grow up a bit quicker. So they got bigger men earlier. I remember going on tour to France at under-15s, and the outside half turned up smoking a cigarette and dropped his missus and the kid off. You had to have a shave before the game, like. And
I'm not going to go into the whole thing of population versus like there's some very weird statistics things there that just
and look,
come into play
I'm
there.
sure there is. This is just anecdotal stuff, maybe from my own experience. But traditionally, England and France are always good at this level, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah. They got
And
the
then
numbers,
everyone,
haven't they?
yeah. So, yeah, I think he's doing I suppose time will tell, really, isn't it? If in 5 years' time these players come through and they're performing at regional rugby and then international level, if we think, for example, Carwyn Leggett-Jones in 5 years' time becomes a Welsh international, then Richard Whiffin has done his job.
Yeah, and I suppose like any tournament there'll be a review. They'll take evidence, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. It might be fantastic, and the players might think they're having wonderful coaching. And it's their fault they're not just put into operation on the pitch. But as you say, it's let's see how they get on this summer.
What I was going to say is that I think with the under-20s as well, it's not just, oh, okay, we've got the head coach and you've got the team that's on the pitch. It's the whole development system behind it. And actually, the WRU needs to look at the whole development system behind it because that's what's affecting the team more so than I think the seniors do. Because the seniors, like the clubs, are very much responsible. I think for the under-20s, the WRU need to be held more responsible for the development of the players. And so, why are they not all on the same page? They're here, there, and everywhere. They're playing for so many different clubs. The WRU needs to take a bit more ownership of those individuals and how they're developing to go out on the pitch.
Do you think part of it as well is that one, believe it or not, it wasn't that long ago that I was sort of, well, it was a long time ago actually, but I do remember being sort of 18, 19, 20, and it is different to being 28, 29, 30 when you may have family, kids, mortgage. You're aware of how to look after yourself and conduct yourself a little bit more. You take in Leggett Jones as a prime example, whereby he may do some things you go, oh, that's maybe off script.
These are just little bags of hormones running around a grass pitch chasing an egg. They are not rational human beings. Their frontal lobes have not developed.
And there you go.
They're going to have off days. Some of them may have full sleeves of tattoos, but they are just children, essentially.
I would like to point out to listeners, Hattie is aware that they are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, but this is just her opinion of anyone younger than her.
Little bags of hormones.
I was a bag of hormones at 18, 19, 20. I got to be honest.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I still am, and I'm mid-30s, so
I mean, sometimes you have a conversation. No offense to any 18-year-olds listening, but the older you get, and I say this as somebody who's 29, so I'm not that much older than them. Sometimes you have a conversation with an 18-year-old and you think, bloody hell, you've got some growing up to do. So that's all I have to say. You think you know it all at that age, and you don't.
Yeah, and now I can't get out of bed in the morning without, pain and some sort of discomfort.
that's just years of abusing yourself in the front row there, Dan.
Yeah, it is years of playing this ridiculous game that we all love. Yeah, everything hurts from my big right toe all the way up to my underdeveloped frontal lobe.
I do understand because one of the things I had this really point about like how things develop in the clubs, and I do get that's why the WRU management are now trying to bring in the national academy. There are many people who say we shouldn't have got rid of it in the first place. I do think, aside from I know certain commenters on X and such will say that it's because the WRU love Cardiff so much, but I do feel like there's a reason why quite a strong core of that under-20s and the under-18s team have been Cardiff, and it is the fact that they are that's one academy which really only has one feeder club. You've got the two under-16s teams, the under-18s team, then they go into the rags, and then they break through to the Cardiff, and it's a really nice progression pathway, and they play with each other week in, week out.
The national
And
academy.
I feel like in other places it's a bit more spread out. Like the RGC boys are a bit stuck out on their own.
The national
Ospreys are
academy
between
thing,
4 SRC teams.
They are, but the national academy thing as well. You're right to mention it because there was additional coaching in that. Don't get me wrong, the likes of Neil Jenkins, etc., were going out doing kicking with bigger and all this other bits. But what they had that held it together and was Alan Carter would go around basically helping young men make better decisions. That's there's a lot to do. Go and speak to someone who knows what he did around that time, and he would advise people on university places, see if you can get them into university in Wales, but do a lot of back channeling stuff and help, young men who would generally will make shit decisions in life. I remember we've all been there and done it, and try and help them make less shit decisions. And the result was we managed to keep all of our talent in Wales, or most of it in Wales, and kept them on the straight and narrow and developed the sort of better decision making. Because these people got to be taught to live as well, really, as a professional and as a person, as a human being. If you've grown up in a family whereby none of your parents understand pro sport or what it entails, nutrition, sleep, hydration, training, keeping on top of your schoolwork, all the rest of it. How are you expected to? Who do you learn that from? Because most of the things that you learn in life growing up probably come from, your home environment. I know I was fed the things that my mother put on the table in front of me. My mum didn't have any idea about what nutrition was best for performance sport. None.
But
You know.
that's sorry, Dan, to jump in, but I think that's why when we've seen Ireland, England, and France, especially over the last, I don't know, decade, really, really excel at under 18s and under 20 level, is because that kind of education is built into their pathways, whether that be schools or in France's case, their academy system. That's built into them from when they're really young. And we don't seem to have that. So we've got players who are going into a professional setup not knowing that and not knowing how to be a professional, whereas kids in other countries are learning that at school as part of their preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. You go and see the facilities and the environment that Clifton College have, for example, and the way that they would expect them to live. In addition to that, the educational side of things is pushed really hard. So not only do you have people that are growing up in a proper, semi or pro sport environment, they're also educated. So it's easier then to learn things on field, game plan, structure, lineup calls, so on and so forth. Um, those things are not to be underestimated. They're important, I think. And it's easy to gloss over and have a look at, the final table, but there's so much more that goes into it rather than just that.
Absolutely right. So I'm just going to end this episode of the pod on a couple of very quick fire, just nonsense fluff stuff like you'll hear on every podcast. So we're just going to quickly go. Well, I would say try the tournament, but I think all from Wales' perspective, obviously, I think we all agree it's the Carre one,
Yeah.
the bus.
Well,
Go on,
it
Dan.
was good, but I did like Wayno's on the weekend. Set up well,
There's
But
your,
team.
there's your,
it's the
there's your bias.
smile. The
Yeah,
smile, though.
but
Yeah, but he all right. Yes, he powered through two Italian forwards, but I mean, you want a forward to power through forwards. What you don't expect is your loose head prop handing off, yet somehow dummying, and then beating for pace
A
a winger.
winger.
And for me, that's just
And it
beautiful.
wasn't even James Lowe. It was actually a fast
It
Ireland
was an
winger.
actual winger with pace, yes.
yeah, I'll acquiesce to that. Go on. All right, you've sold it to me.
Right. So now I'm going to go. So our play. So I just want to know who each our individual player of the tournament. Again, from a Wales perspective, for me.
Oof. Go on,
I'll go
someone else
first.
will have to go first. Yeah, go for it.
Aaron Wainwright.
Hattie.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go Wayno.
I'm gonna have to go Wayno as well.
Yeah, well, fuck you all. I'm going Alex, man. I'm going full blue and black tinted glasses on this because he broke a long-standing record for tackles made lots of tackles, proved many doubters wrong. Aaron Wainwright was excellent, yes, but we know he's excellent. He hasn't. I don't think he's taken a step up where I think Alex Mann, I think, has proved himself. And yeah, so I'll go with the majority though. I just wanted to put my love for Alex Mann in on this one. But yeah, so our player of the tournament, Aaron Wainwright, and I'd like to know which Welsh players you think would be genuine contenders if we were doing an official team of the tournament. So one each, if you like, and we'll take Aaron Wainwright as our player of the tournament as a given.
Mm. I the front row would have a shout.
Mm.
1, 2, and 3, I think. Yeah, but yeah, Reece Carey may have been the outstanding loose head in the tournament. Blake was brilliant at hooker, most weeks, every week. And Franny done his job, so take your pick of those three.
I really like Francis. I think he's been a hell of a difference, but
Yeah.
I think the first two more so because certainly if you were picking a Lions team this year as opposed to last year, they'd certainly be in the conversation. Whereas, so yeah, I'd stick with the first two, but I do appreciate what Thomas Francis has brought us as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree. I do agree.
I would like to say with Thomas Francis as well, he hasn't just held up the scrum, which
Mm.
yes, he's done that with him, but he was at one point he was like the top for tackles, combined tackle rucks in both attack and defense hits and carries all in one go. He's he's put the work in, not let other players do this stuff.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
lot. It's a
Lake's been
lot of work. It is a lot of work.
Lake. I'd say the black mark against him is some of his thrown wasn't brilliant, although there was one which clearly I think it was the first line out that Beard calls that they missed the lift completely.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's. I'm sure they'll work out. I feel like the throw was right there, but I went either way. And yeah, Reece Carey, I think he
Yeah.
again has proved out. In a similar vein to Alex Mann, I think he's proved out as right. So yeah.
He's
Any advancements
proved Warren Gatland very, very
and
wrong.
Wayne Pivac. Don't forget, Wayne Pivac was also.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'd also like to point out that both of them dropped Nicky Smith over various points, which no one ever wanted to mention when they were against Reece Carey.
And Wayne Pivac dropped Aaron Wainwright as well.
Yep, him and James Botham.
Yeah.
Quite a few of these players have got dropped. Any other players other than our front row you think?
Dav Jenkins.
Yeah,
What my shout is probably going to be for Dav Jenkins because he's played near enough every minute of the tournament. I'd also like to say, even though he only started the last 3 games, Ben Carter as well, I thought has I feel like the addition of Ben Carter has made the pack click
yeah. Can I
with what
say
he did.
somebody slightly insane?
Go for it.
But it's based on purely their defensive work in a position you wouldn't expect. And I'm going to say Ellis Mee on defense has actually been very, very good, like surprisingly good.
You know what? Both our wingers have been.
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
thing
I
is, you
suppose not so much
expect it from
surprising for
Josh
Adam.
Adams,
Yeah,
but
They've had
but
plenty of
Esme has been good.
practice.
Yeah.
yeah, they have. But I think Ellis Mee, there's been plenty of wingers in the tournament who have just been scoring tries left, right, and centre, and we haven't had that, unfortunately. But I think Ellis Mee, in terms of defence, has been one of the best.
Yeah, excellent. I'm gonna put my one last. Whether or not he's good enough for team of the tournament, probably not. But I think for how well he's taken what is one of the steepest learning curves in rugby, and I think stayed ahead of it. I'm gonna go with Eddie J. I'd like to put Eddie James forward as a name because I think the way he is adapted to that position,
I was going to
I
say
still think he's better I still think he's probably gonna be a better 12. But considering how many players we've dropped into 13 and they have struggled, the
Well,
fact
Yeah.
that
team of the
he is.
tournament now, though. Team of the tournament.
Yeah, I would say
I
for
said I wouldn't put him
Jones.
in team of the tournament levels, but then
would be
there's
saying breakout player.
Breakout player.
Yeah.
as a breakout player potentially, yeah.
I think he's been the one that's come on and everyone like although Scarlets fans have been going for ages like it's Eddie James, we need Eddie James in the team. I feel like everyone else now has gone, yeah, we need Eddie James.
If you're going down the breakout player route, then that's maybe where Ben Carter comes in, because he's come in and done the business.
Yeah. I said, I mean, a lot of these players I probably wouldn't put in my team of the tournament, but I still think they should be in the discussions for it, is sort of where I'm going.
Can we pick a player from another country to be our player of the tournament?
Only if it's Louis Beilberry because
That
he
was the
deserves
person
it.
I was going to pick.
Because you can't score an individual bonus point of tries and not be close to it.
Yeah, Louis Beep Beep is my international
Just
player of the
And
tournament.
also for scoring on 10 consecutive Six Nations games. He made up a stat that no one had even considered before and just so we could beat it.
He was the top. He broke the try scoring record last year, and now he's broken the try scoring record this year.
I'm gonna sound like Roy Keane here, but it's his job, isn't it? He's just doing his job. He's just finishing. Now
But he's doing it. He's doing it bloody well, though, isn't he?
But if he's not
Some of those
scoring
I
a
could
try,
bang.
he's setting someone else up. So his try involvements are ridiculous. But
Oh yeah,
I mean, it is a sign that something's working very well for France. To be fair, the fact he's able to get in these positions, but there are positions where you just don't expect him to.
Beep
That's the thing.
beep.
Would anyone else like to nominate a player of the tournament, a non-Welsh player of the tournament? Then
I do like limoncello. I quite like menoncello.
we don't need your drinking preferences, Dan.
I think I think Menoncello's box office for me. I think everything he does, superb, big, strong, fast, athletic, good offload, whacks people in D. Charles Olivon has been good for France, week in, week out. Do you know what? I think there's been loads of stand-up performances actually from a number of players. Across the team, this Six Nations has been absolutely mad. It is without a doubt the best rugby tournament in the world. There's no doubt about it. It's delivered once again on every level, really, isn't it? You know, you look at Wales as an example, get pumped by England. England then lose every other game, including to Italy. Wales beat Italy, who beat England, and you know all these other little scenarios that have gone on.
Yeah, Scotland beat eventual winners France. Yeah,
Scotland beat eventual winners France. You know, France conceded 40 odd again against England, who'd lost every other game apart from Wales leading up to that. Oh, yeah, what a fantastic tournament.
Yeah, and I have a bone to pick with France because England have conceded more points against the other Six Nations teams than Wales, apart from against France, and it's ruined a trend, and I hate it. Does anyone have any other comments they want to make about the Six Nations before we park this and disappear for a few days and then reconvene?
No, I thought it was brilliant.
All right, so before we go, I just want to leave with one stat I sort of was ruminating in my head whilst driving from Devon to Cardiff this morning. If Wales do what is probably expected and not win the next Six Nations, it will be the first World Cup cycle since the 99 to 2003 where Wales have not won a championship.
Oh,
next year.
Just saying, and with that sort of hit rate, you never know.
Harley, don't forget we've still won the Six Nations more recently than England.
Yes. And even if Scotland had somehow won last weekend, they'd still only be Five Nations championships. And on that, thank you, Hattie. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, listeners. Nasta.
Lost out.